5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Tell Me That Story show. I fumbled it. I meant to do the vertical thing, but we'll power through. How are you? Is everything okay?
I'm good. Just driving.
That's good. All right. So today, we are talking about miracles. And before we get into that, let me do a little bit of housekeeping just to let you know what we have been doing this week. So this week we've had an episode of Reschooling Flat Earthers. We had last Friday Nadir's debate, which was interesting to say the least. I missed that one, but it was very interesting. Us did a couple of shows, Earth Ain't Flat debate, did slavery and indentured servitude stream with you, Isa. And then we had the pre and after shows for us and Kyle's debate. Well, we did a pre-show and then we did a watch party. So you have those two. We also did a pre-show and an after show for Grayson's debate with Evidence of God. Grayson from Critical Base Theory on Did the Flood of Noah Happen? Oz did an episode earlier today where he went over the claims of Kyle Adams, the Mormon, about electrostatic gravity. And now we're having our show. So if you're there, say hello. And remember to do like the social things, right? Like, share, subscribe, send this to your significant other, send this to your friends. Yell, subscribe to Matters Now in the corner of your house so you can spread the love and you can let people know about this awesome channel. So, miracles. It's an interesting topic. And I think that first we need to define what a miracle would be. One of the Vatican councils defined miracles as an unhabitual phenomena, abnormal, and sometimes public. If you ask me, that's a little vague of a definition. But if we go to the dictionary, for example, there we can see that miracle comes from the Latin word mirare. And the meaning of that word refers to looking with intent of admiration. So I think that's a better definition for what a miracle would be. So during the 20 centuries of history, of Christian history, knowing what is a miracle or figuring out if an event was a miracle has always resulted in many positions and debates. For example, even though an eclipse is a rare and prodigious event, it does not constitute a miracle. Let's see, Michael Bell. Hippocrates. People think that epilepsy is divine simply because they don't have an idea what causes epilepsy. But I believe someday we will understand what causes epilepsy. And at that moment, we will cease to believe it's divine. And so it is with everything in the universe. Hello, Robin. How are you? We're talking miracles today. An eclipse is rare and prodigious, amazing thing to see, but it doesn't constitute a miracle. So it's not enough. I'm not sure. Everyone seems to be hearing me, Robin. Not sure. Might be on your end because everything. Isa heard me and no one else. has problem with the sound. Hope you can fix it. So it's not enough for an event to be rare and prodigious to be considered a miracle. I would disagree with the chronicle here, which in this case it's Voltaire, because I don't think an eclipse is it's a prodigious event. I think is it rare? Yes. Is it awesome? Yes. Does my jaw stay wide open whenever I watch an eclipse? Yes. Do I think it's something prodigious? Not really. For example, when we call a guitarist a prodigy, we're not saying it in the literal sense. We're not saying it that it's something miraculous. We're saying that in a metaphorical sense. So, having that being said, Saint Augustine was the first one to describe miracles, to put boundaries and limits onto the definitions as to what constitutes a miracle. This man from Hippona used to recognize the evidence of the hand of God in miracles, but would quarrel against the supernatural character of miracles. This is rare, at least to me. He would say that these prodigious things were already contained in the nature of things. And if God would manifest through an unhabitual event, he would do so in order to affirm with more clarity his presence. And I take this to mean that St. Augustine didn't actually believe in miracles. My interpretation of this is that he didn't actually believe in miracles, but again, that might be just my interpretation of this. I will quote some of his works. The marvels that God offers in the mechanisms of the universe have become so familiar, they are now banal. Almost no one now pays attention to the amazing power that God displays in a simple grain of wheat, end quote. So this gives us the idea that he considered basically creation itself a miracle, but that gives us a few problems when it comes to discussing other things, like other claimed miracles, so that we're going to list in just a few. And as far as St. Augustine goes, he affirmed that God would kind of save up the eventual fulfillment of miracles or prodigious phenomena in order to for men insensible to the daily marvels of creation. So I take this as meaning that St. Augustine thought that the miracles were some sort of preaching being done by God. Basically, God does miracles to sort of flex his power and display and remind humans of his ultimate power and glory. And I'm not very fond of this interpretation, to be fair. Next, we have Saint Anselmo I and later Thomas Aquinas, also a saint, Saint Thomas Aquinas. Those renewed those hypotheses. These two believed that miracles were a strict demonstration of divine power and would not consider miracles everyday events, like in very stark opposition of what St. Augustine believed. With the rise of rationalism, this notion of divine transcendence started to get some pushback. So now we have, for example, the Baron of Montaigne saying, and I quote, It's the product of the ignorance we have of the intimacy of nature, unquote. So for the Baron, miracles were just natural phenomena we didn't have an explanation for. And this is also, at least to me, problematic. It doesn't satisfy my search for a definition. And this goes back to what Michael Bell was saying earlier about who was it? Hippocrates. Now, so there are still, and the problem with this definition, at least in my view, is that there are still, to this day, many things we don't know the mechanisms for, but or why we don't know the explanation, but we still don't compute them as miracles. The judgment from the Baron was the first presentation of ideas that became more elegant and refined later, with people like Young and Voltaire. For these thinkers, miracles were impossible because they resulted in an interruption of free will. And this would translate into randomness, interrupting the determinism of things. And I don't like this explanation either. I mean, who said there is no randomness? Randomness exists, at least in my view. Science advances so fast and with such reach that it appears to usurp the divine power. Here, there is nothing that would explain to me, in all of these definitions that we covered, there is nothing that would explain to me what happens if one day the sun moves backwards, if one day the sun inverts its path over the sky. None of it explains that to me. I mean, would it be our ignorance of not being able to explain it? I mean, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. But that being said, rest assured, because the sun is not going to move the other way around. So, with that preamble, now we're going to tell a few miracles, both pagan and Christian. So, 25 centuries ago, people would go on pilgrimages to Athens, to the temple of Asclepius, the god of medicine. They would go during the classical times in Greece and later during Hellenism in search of the healing powers of the temples. People would just deposit jewels, silver and golden objects in the shape of hands and feet and eyes, because whatever was your malady at the time, if you wanted, for example, what's hurting you? My knee. Okay, you have to get a golden knee and bring it to the temple, and that way you can get your knee your knee healed. Pausanias, the Spartan general, who we have talked about a little bit on the show, said there were in that location six huge stones, and those stones were put there to commemorate the most amazing healings done by Asclepius. And in each of those stones, there were more than 60 stories. There was a whole ceremony, a whole protocol for these healings. There were huge queues of people, and they were allowed to sleep while they were waiting because they had to wait for a very long time. So people would go sort of into hypnotic trances, hypnotic states, and they said that Asclepius would present himself during those dreams and would grant them the healing they needed uh, with elaborate procedures and with extravagant procedures. So one of these procedures was the one that healed Clement of Argos, who had lost one eye. It's not lost on me the irony of having lost an eye in Argos, because as many of you may know, Argos was a character that had 100 or possibly 1,000 eyes. So the irony is not lost there. Asclepius presented himself in Clement's dream and put where his eye was supposed to be a liquid concocted by himself in that dream. And after a little while, putting the liquid in the socket of the eye, putting the liquid, then Clement came to the realization, which is a lot to say. How do you notice that your eye grew back? So Clement of Argos realized he had a new eye, and with that, the miracle was completed. Miracle debunkers will say that in the temple of Asclepius, what happened was that some doctorly priests would take advantage of the people sleeping because of the queue and would go around the queue giving people elemental treatments, which is they find that as sufficient explanation for the miracles that happened there. Well, to me, it's not too elemental to give a guy a new eye. I mean, that is not something that you can just do, give them like a potion and cure their cold. I mean, that doesn't work. If I was a miracle debunker, I would say this was just lies, just stories. But the miracle debunkers, on the other hand, would say that some priestly doctors treating the people while they slept. And I would ask, but how? Don't these people find it amazing that this guy got a new eye? They find it amazing that it wasn't Asclepius. That wasn't the miracle. Who was doing the healings wasn't the miracle. The miracle was the healings themselves. So I don't think that is a good sort of way to debunk the miracles. And we will go into that a little bit further down the chat tonight. But yeah, the people that do this kind of thing, that say, oh yeah, the priests used to go around in the night sneaking and they would give aspirin to the people that were there. I don't buy that. I somehow buy that even less than the miracle. So to oppose a miracle, I think that the correct procedure would be to say that it's just a story, or that it didn't happen, or evaluate the evidence if there is any evidence at all. But as it happens with a lot of miracles, we rarely get any evidence. We have mentioned, I believe in the past, that in Islam, there are very few miracles. Off the top of my head, only a handful I can remember. I think I can remember two, like very clearly, and Isa can correct me on this. And they're not, one of them is not even in the Quran. One is the splitting of the moon, and the other one is the trip Muhammad took with the Aburak, which we don't know, it was some kind of flying animal similar to a horse or something, that took Muhammad to the heavens. But in Islam, there's not much of a propensity for miracles. This happens the same way that they don't have a propensity for miracles in Buddhism as well as Protestantism. Martin Luther would say that once faith is established, there is no need for miracles. And when it comes to Buddhism, not only they don't have a propensity for miracles, they actually have an aversion to miracles. And I'm going to tell you a little story. There was in a temple in India, there was a merchant that on the top of a very tall column, he put a bowl, possibly a jade bowl or a silver bowl or a gold plate or something like that, something valuable on the top of the column, which was hard to climb, possibly because the merchant had put soap in it. But he put the bowl there and said, whoever can get the bowl or the plate or whatever it was, they would be able to keep it. So this monk went through there and saw that, and basically he was a very holy man. So he, because of this condition, he could fly. So he just flew to the top of the column, took the bowl, and kept it. So the chief of the monastery where this monk was lived, was a part of, basically kicked him out. And he did that because he said that he performed a miracle in vain. This reminds me of that famous Confucius quote, "Don't use a cannon to kill a mosquito." So in Buddhism, if you do a miracle in vain, you might get kicked out. There is another story from the same area that another monk, when trying to cross a little river, the rafter that would cross you on the raft was nowhere to be found. So what this monk did was just fly over the river, and that also got him kicked out of his monastery. As many of you may know, we have hundreds of records of saints, Christian saints, who were claimed to have powers. And we're going to list a few of those right now. Giuseppe da Copertino, the flying saint, and as well as Saint Francis of Assisi, both looked like they could levitate. Leo was the brother of Saint Francis and was also his biographer. He would state that many times people watched him fly, and he could very well fly to the top of the trees, as well as reach such heights that he would look just like a dot for the people on the ground. Some theologians would estimate that a certain degree of spirituality carried to such an extent would elevate materially some bodies. And they would say that in order to basically not be forced to admit the miracle. Summing it up, some theologians would say that spiritual enlightenment could result in your body becoming lighter, giving you the ability to sometimes like float or fly. But I do consider that this was their way in order to not be forced to admit that the miracles. I mean, because flying is not impressive if you're a fly. If you're an engineer and you fly, then yes, that is a miracle. And obviously, if you're an engineer and you fly by yourself, not with an airplane. Saint Teresa of Avila affirmed that she would feel such lightness in her body that in many times her feet would lose contact with the ground. Another one who flied was Simon Magus, who hopefully many of you know. And he flew, and among other prodigal activities, for example, he could turn stones into bread, he could transform into a snake or a goat, he could create gold, he could appear with two faces, and according to some, the furniture in his house would present himself in order to be of service. Well, I'm sorry. The furniture in his house would present to Simon Magus in order to be to be used. They put themselves at his disposal. Simon Magus died during one, let's say, exercise of his miracles. He basically had sort of a bet. He assured Peter the Apostle that he could fly. Peter, filled with jealousy, prayed to God that Simon would crash. And there, in plain view of a crowd gathered to watch the miracle, Simon Magus flew and then precipitated himself down to his death. We don't know if it was the prayer that worked or that Simon Magus's trick malfunctioned, but this is the first record of an aerial accident in history. We have said before in this show that if you believe like you can fly, it's always best to take off the ground. We mentioned this in our catalog of weird deaths. A guy who created a cape with which he assured one could fly and jumped off the Eiffel Tower and obviously died. On that time, we advised if you think you can fly, take off the ground. But now we have another PSA. The PSA today is that if you want to perform the miracle of flying, it's best that the miracle fails completely so that you never take off the ground. The problem is that if you actually manage to take off and then the miracle fails, that's where things go bad. So we have already 2 PSAs for those of you who are interested in attempting the feat of flying. Next miracle, Saint Cataline of Siena. She would walk on red hot embers, and during her exaltation trances, she would spend hours on top of the embers with no bother. And not even her clothes would succumb to the fire. In the Vatican books, they are uncountable the amount of times that it's stated that Saint Francis of Paula would hold red hot irons without suffering any damage, just for fun. It looks like when he was bored, he would just grab a red hot iron. And he used to say that these were no miracles, but that this happened because he was so rustic that the fire and heat didn't affect him. Another one is Saint Gennaro of Naples. His miracles are well known. His miracle is well known because it's one. There are in a cathedral in Naples. There is a bottle with flakes of this man's blood, Saint Gennaro. So, at a certain time during the year, those dried up blood flakes, they will liquefy. They'll become liquid again. So, as far as this miracle goes, Alexandre Dumas tells the story of a French general, Jean Pionnet, who occupied. Sorry. Who occupied Naples, and he basically took over the city, went to the cathedral, and wanted to see the miracle of the liquefied blood. But the blood was there, dry as a dog's butt. So the people used to say that when the miracle of Naples didn't happen, that it was basically foreshadowing catastrophes, foreshadowing disaster. And he was aware of this, Jean Pionnet. He was aware of this, so when he arrived to the cathedral and saw that the blood was dry, he basically took the head of the cathedral, the head priest of the cathedral, and threatened him with an ancient pistol. He basically told him that he would shoot him if the blood didn't become liquid in the next 5 minutes. As we can all imagine, this was more than just threatening the man. This was also threatening the saint. But he wasn't happy with that. And he added that he would also turn the whole city to rubble. Following that, the blood did become liquid, and this is the only case in history that I know of a miracle performed under threat. And that was a little bit of the chat, but I have a couple of more things to say before we go into the dedications. In modern times, miracles happen way less frequently. There are some explanations as to why. None of them are convincing to me. But that being said, the final reflection I have is when I was a kid, there used to be in the 90s, there used to be a lot of this sort of ephemeris documentaries where they would try to explain some of the miracles in the Bible. For example, the plagues of Egypt. That's the one I clearly remember watching it like Saturday or Sunday morning while everyone else was still asleep at home and watching the documentaries on how some of the things came about. For example, the death of the firstborns was explained the following way in those kinds of documentaries. Basically, some sulfuric or poisonous gases broke out of the crust of the earth, and they crept over Egypt like a fog. And at this time, the firstborns used to sleep on cribs on the floor. And that way, that caused that only the firstborns died because they were ones closest to the floor. My problem with this kind of explanation is that if you find a naturalistic explanation for this, let's grant for a second that both things are true, that the plagues of Egypt are real, and that these Evermary documentaries have the actual explanation correct. Then it's not a miracle anymore. It's just something that happens, and that can potentially happen again. There's another explanation of, for example, why the Nile turned red, and it's supposed that either some chariots were thrown into the river and the oxide turned the river red, which is hard to believe, or that some earthquake turned loose some ore and the oxide also turned the river red. So if you find that explanation, then it's no longer a miracle. You take away from the miracle. So if you tell me that Jesus didn't die in the cross because after the Romans left, they took him down and they nursed him back to health, then it's not a miracle anymore. And this idea of trying to find explanations for the miracles, it's extremely weird to me. My problem with these kinds of rationalizations or explanation is that they're denying the miracle. And people would say that, after all, people who subscribe to this kind of thinking would say that, after all what God did was the manipulation of nature. But then you don't believe in miracles if you think like that. If you think that God just manipulates nature to get a desired outcome, then I'm sorry to say that you don't believe in miracles. And I find the juxtaposition of those people and me very funny, in that I actually, when people tell the miracles, I accept them as they are when people tell me about miracles. The problem is that when you start analyzing, for example, the one I have looked into, what's it called? Hold on, I have it saved here. 1 second. The Virgin of Guadalupe. The Virgin of Guadalupe miracle, that's a tangible thing, right? So they analyzed it, and a bunch of the claims that are attached to the miracle are all of a sudden no longer true. Because one of the claims made on the painting of the Virgin of Guadalupe is that it has no brush strokes, and that there's no way they could have painted it like that. The problem is that they did, I'm not sure if it was spectroscopy or infrared scanning or some of these techniques that let you view different layers. What they found was that there was a sketch below. There was a previous version of that painting below the one that is visible on the top layer of the paint. And that basically destroys the miracle. If you analyze it like that, then okay, one of the claims attached to that painting was that there were no brush strokes and that it couldn't have been painted like that. But then you see a previous sketch, a previous version of the painting below, and all that goes out the window. So, Isa, who would you like to dedicate this to? This is a hard one to dedicate. You there? Not sure. Well, I would like to dedicate this to the people who are miracles. I'm feeling a bit romantic today. So those people that come and they are the miracle. There is a quote by where she was. There was Eden. Give me okay. Mark Twain. Mark Twain has a book that has a quote that goes. It basically says the book. Sorry, let me let me put my ideas in order. The book is The Diaries of Adam and Eve, and in this book, Mark Twain says that after Adam and Eve got kicked out of Eden, um, when Eve died, the epitaph in Eve's tomb, from made by Adam, said, "Wheresoever she was, there was Eden." So it wasn't Eden in this book to Mark Twain. It wasn't the place that was Eden; it was her, and it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very I think that out of the messages of all of the things related to like religion, I think this one has been the one most powerful to me personally. So I would like to dedicate this to those people who are miracles, who come and turn over your life for the better. Because there's also people who are the opposite, who come in and turn your life for the worse. But I would like to dedicate that to Isa. Let me know when you're back, because I want to ask you for your dedication, and I have a couple of questions for you about your thoughts on miracles. Jerry Johnson says, miracle of Polycarp's death is also a registered miracle too. I don't know if you will cover that. I don't have it for today, but I'll put it on the list. Maybe I didn't think of doing a catalog out of this series because I already have a couple of catalogs going on, and I haven't done a second episode on them yet. But yeah, this might turn into a catalog of miracles series. The minion of God, he comes in and preaches. Dude, let me tell you this. Preaching is not going to get you very far here. It's like this is not the place to preach. A lot of us either have our minds made up about religion or we're just atheists. So I don't know. It's a weird thing to come and just. I saw you yesterday there on the chat also praising Jesus and stuff. It's not the place. It's not the. It won't do you any good. You won't convince anyone. And also, I don't think God has an internet access. Just so you know. So I think we might have lost Isa. Let me. I will ask one of you. Put in the side chat who would you like to dedicate this chat to, and I will choose the best response. As you know, we do dedications. Who does the chat remind you of? Who? It can be tangential. It doesn't have to be a very specific thing. But dedications they're always a nice part of the chat. Mm-hmm. So okay, Real Sickness won straight up because he dedicated to Kyle, and I'm assuming Kyle the Mormon. So yeah, Kyle, you should pray for a miracle, buddy. For the miracle of brains. Well, I don't have much else to say on that. I usually bounce off of Isa giving me insights, and I had a couple of questions relating to miracles I wanted to ask Isa specifically. but I don't know. Maybe he had to go. Maybe he was busy. He was on the move, so not really a problem. But with that, that will conclude our chat today of miracles. Next week, Isa is taking back over. As you know, we've been doing one chat after the other. So 1 week we've been alternating. 1 week I take over, 1 week he takes over, and we've been having a lot of fun. Not sure what he will want to go into, but we'll update as soon as we have an idea what the next episode will be. As you know, do the social thingies. We've had a bunch of content this past week for you. Let me remind you what we've had. So this week, starting last Friday, we had Nadir's debate with Joseph Pitano, sounds Italian, on whether the Quran is scientific. Nadir came over and dumpster fire ensued. He started calling people names and got himself kicked off the show because he called people, I don't know, mentally deficient or some shit like that. Not cool. Now, then Oz did a stream called Earth in Flat Debate. I haven't seen that one. And then did another episode of his Reschooling Flat Earthers series, had slavery and indentured servitude being immoral stream with Isa. And then we had 2 days ago the pre-show, and then a watch party with Kyle's Oz's debate with Kyle on whether the moon landing was fake. Yesterday we had a pre-show and an after show. Was it yesterday? I'm not sure. We had a pre-show and an after show of Grayson's debate with Evidence of God. And then earlier today, Oz had Reschooling Flat Earthers, basically addressing Kyle's electrostatic gravity claims. But with that, I'm going to make one final try. Isa, can you hear me? Are you there? Isa. No, it seems like he had to go. I like to think that he's in pooping. But that's because I'm silly. All right. What are people talking about here in the side chat? Why are you being so serious? Michael Bell says, step 1, method, prove a historical Jesus existed. 2, he was magical. 3, his magic came from God. 4, that God was your God. 5, that your God exists at all. You might want to start with 5. Yeah, that is a very, very good way to go about it. But just so you know, this is a silly show. Don't get into serious discussions here. Ashton asked me, have you ever heard Insane Clown Posse song Miracles? Isa, I saw you. Can you hear me? You are muted, and now you don't have the video on. But I have a question.
Did you ask me a question?
I wanted to ask you for your dedication, and then I have a question about Miracle.
Okay, my dedication. Okay, I'll make a dedication. So my dedication is to it's right there. My dedication is to the idea that there might be something that we might not know or understand, and maybe there might be something to these miracles, that there could be something deeper and mysterious. And you know what? I'm going to give a dedication to Fox Mulder from X-Files. Maybe we can believe.
All right. Yeah, Jerry Johnson said bro was driving. Yes, he was driving, but I thought he had come home and he was on the toilet, but no. So, Isa, what is your take on miracles? Do you think they exist? Do you accept them? Is any particular miracle that you find more compelling than others? What's your take?
That's a good question. I think miracles have a place. Um, I think sometimes it's in mystery. I don't think I need to know the answer. You know what I mean? Maybe there is something deeper than what we can really see. And I like to leave the door open for that. Um, people might call that being a fence hitter, but I think that it's kind of a cool place to be. And I was, like I said, I brought up Fox Mulder because that's what his position was. There's maybe something deeper than what we can see. I don't think it's about being compelling. I don't know if we can prove this. It's just that maybe we can have a place for seeing that there might be an acceptance for it.
All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. Do you have any preferred miracle, or do you have any one that you say, this one I think it is actually a miracle?
I mean, I don't know. Like for me, I think so. My dad was a spiritual healer. He did work like that, and it helped people. It helped support people, and that's what I think matters. Do I think that there's some specific event like turning water into wine or splitting the moon? I'm not really. That's not something that I'm involved with personally.
Right.
But and I'm not really compelled by it. But I think, what a real miracle is if someone who's really mean and nasty becomes a nice and good person, and whatever function is about that transformation. I think that's pretty miraculous.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And as far as what I said about Islam and miracles, my understanding is that in Islam they don't believe in miracles because God doesn't make mistakes, or God doesn't have to correct anything. The one miracle he did, the one of splitting the moon, and then of the Al Burak thing, those are very limited in scope and spectrum, right? And do I have that correct? That it's because they don't think that God makes mistakes and needs to make like call an audible in the middle of a play?
So the issue is what version of Islam? I think the people who say they're like the Salafi Wahhabi Muslims, people in
Right.
Tasawwuf and mysticism, they definitely have miracles. The Shuyukh do
Okay.
miracles. The masters do. The problem is who is dominating the narrative of Islam. The people who are dominating the narrative of Islam are really right-wing fanatics. I'm just going to be honest. And they have dominated the whole space. There's no space for any other Muslims to speak. And that hurts the Muslim community because that's who the people we see. We see Daniel Hakakichu, we see Jake the metaphysician, we see Hamza, whatever his name is, from Britain, and they're all coming out and we see them and they say, oh, those are Muslims. Whatever they say is Islam. That's a version of Islam, but it's not the only Islam. So there's a lot of spaces where people do believe in these things. The Sufi saints did lots of things. Like you could take Sheikh Ahmed Bamba. He was said to have prayed out on the water. He put his prayer mat and he prayed out on the water. They've done all kinds of miraculous things.
That's cool.
You could even say the story of Isra wal Mi'raj is a miracle too, where the prophet goes onto this burak and he goes and he elevates up into the heavens. He goes to Jerusalem and then he goes up to the heavens. But some people say, well, that's a dream. That's what some people argue. But I'd say it's a pretty miraculous thing. And some people believe in the hadith that the prophet split the moon in half. I mean, that's a story, So there are miraculous things that occur, but I think that
So both stories, the Al Burak thing and the one of splitting the moon, both of those are in the Hadith.
The Isra Mi'raj is the story. There's a whole a chapter in the Quran called Isra, the night journey. So the night journey is just a part of the narrative. That's like an Islamic narrative.
Right, but is it the Quran or the Hadith? Because
it's in both. It's talked about in both. This night journey about him going to Jerusalem and going up. It's a very important thing, So
right, yeah. I remember from what I've read that the Burak kind of tumbled a jar of water, and they made their whole trip to heaven through all the heavens and then came back. And when they came back, the jar hadn't finished like toppling over yet.
And that's a story. Here's another kind of miraculous thing, because it talks about. So I did a whole analysis on the King Solomon, or Prophet Suleiman, right? And how he kind of transforms. So in the Hebrew scriptures, he's this kind of masterful king that's able to marry the Queen of Sheba. He has 1,000 wives, I believe. Yeah, altogether it's like 1,000 wives. He does all of these things that are not like kind of superhuman. This is not what a normal human does, right? And then what happens is it keeps transforming, that he even gets more power. So like in the Quran, it actually mentions that he talks with animals. He speaks with the animals. So I would say it's like Beastmaster. There's a movie called Beastmaster where the guy can speak to animals. So that's a pretty cool power. I mean, that's miraculous, I would say. Someone who could speak to animals, pretty powerful.
Course, yeah, Solomon, he's a good character, let's say. I hope you don't take offense in the stuff that I say, but
I'm not offended by anything. I'm a very free speech, free, open-minded person. That's why we're partners, hermano.
Yeah. But it is said that when they opened his tomb, they found cannabis plants. So he did a little bit of the doobie. So I like that. That's always fun. But these are. It's always interesting to see what stuff gets called a miracle and how those change over time. In World War II was the miracle of this monk that flew alongside the people, the planes that were going to bomb them, and made them stop, because like you're flying a plane and you look to your side and you see like a monk flying next to you, so they didn't complete the attack. And then they went to see the monk and told them, hey, like, oh, we saw you were flying there. I don't know. It's super interesting to see. I don't believe any of it, but it's always interesting to talk about it.
I want to tell you another funny miracle, a Catholic. I know a lot about Catholic miracles too. There was a miracle, the visitation of Our Lady Fatima, that was like a bunch of people. They actually had a court case about that. So they said maybe there's mass hallucination. That was the argument they were saying. They were saying this couldn't be a miracle because it was mass hallucination. But there's another funny one. I always tell the story as a character actor, but there was this Saint Cupertino, and the people they said about him, they said he was not very intelligent, but he was prone to levitation. So Saint Cupertino used to float up. He wasn't too smart, but he could fly.
Yeah, that is. I would trade that. I would make that trade. I would be dumb and capable of flying any day of the week. But yeah, I remember Cupertino. He's come up in my research a couple of times. I still haven't gone deep into it, but yeah, he's a recurring character in the chat and the material I consult to build the chats for the Tell Me That Story show. All right, with that, anything else, the audience? If you would like to say something, audience, do it now, but because we're on the final stretch. And Isa, any reflection, anything else you would like to say? Any idea of what we're doing next week, or whatever you want? Take it away.
We get to do some more Sufi stories if you like. I have a whole book of tons of Sufi stories, and they're all different and all unique and interesting. So we could do another round of Sufi stories if you like.
Okay. Yeah, that was cool. Except for the one where they killed the dog. They were pretty funny.
Yeah, the rich man, the poor man who kills his own dog. Yeah, it's horrific. But the thing is, the purpose of the story is so powerful, just like the other stories you read, because if you make haste, you're going to make waste, and lives are lost. So we have to think about what we're doing. My reflection on all of this is just, be open-minded. It's okay if I think whatever we do in our spaces, let's just be open to different ideas and not close our minds off. And that's it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to believe, but you can say, what? I'm open to hearing different ideas, even if I don't agree with them. That's the important place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I wouldn't put it any better way. All right. With that, thank you everyone so much for joining us. Next time, I'll make sure to remember to do the whole vertical thing because we get a lot more people in the audience that way. But we'll catch you. And next week, we're going back to Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to subscribe, like, share, do the social thing is send it to your significant other, send this to your friend, yell in the corner of your house, subscribe to Matters Now. And that way we can share the channel and make sure that we reach more and more people. Thank you everyone for being there. Take care. Have a good night. I don't think we have any content scheduled for the weekend, but we might do something. We'll keep you updated. And if you subscribe, be sure to you make sure that you won't miss anything. Thank you, Robin, for dropping by. I hope your sound worked out. Take care, everyone. Have a good night and a very good weekend. We'll see you. Woohoo. Oh, wait, sorry. I just remembered. On Sunday, we have another Nadir debate.
Nadir. We have the
Yes,
Nadir debate.
Against that horrible debater, heated
Very
debate.
great. No, बहुत अच्छा, great debater, best debater of all time.
Dude, he sucks. Maybe it's because I checked the channel and he debates a lot in Hindi. Maybe he's better in Hindi, but in English, Abba Toro Terimaki Tooth. Yeah, but in English, he's freaking horrible. Freaking horrible.
Shifting
Right.
the pictures, hilarious.
Yeah. Isa says peace. Aston Richard says love you, Max. Thank you so much. And also says love you, Isa. And the Dominion of God also gives us a message like trust. I don't know if it's a noun or a verb, but sure, buddy, we'll take that. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you. Take care. Have a good night.